Good afternoon, guys. We are in the kitchen and I'm feeling a little better this afternoon, so I thought I'd try to make something that somebody had asked me to make a few months ago. I'm not sure if it's been about 2 months, but somebody wanted to know how to make crab cakes. And we're going to make crab cakes tonight. And the first thing you're going to do is you need about 2 stalks of celery, just depending on how thick they are. These are not very thick. And I've got a small onion on my recipe, but I'm going to use a medium onion because I'm going to put 3 cans of crab meat in this. The recipe I have here doesn't seem to make quite enough, and it doesn't have enough crab meat in it because I don't buy the real expensive crab meat. Robert is happy with that. And this is about $2 and something a can, I'm not sure. But if you want to make a smaller batch, I'll put the smaller recipe on, and you can make it that way. Or you can add the extra can to it, and you don't really have to add anything extra. We just like a lot of onions and celery in it. Robert likes it, so that's the way I make it. I'm putting a little extra in it, more than what the recipe calls for. But you can do the recipe if you want to. Or I'll put this recipe on if you like this one. That's fine. I don't care to do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to chop the onions and chop the celery a little bit. And we're going to chop this celery small. And we're going to saute them for about 3 to 4 minutes till they kind of get a little translucent, because they're too crunchy to me if you put them in there like that. So the first thing we're going to do is chop the onion. And you want it a kind of a small dice. So you want to make these lines close together. And I'm not going to chop the whole onion for you. I'm just going to show you how to start it. And then I'll come back in a minute and show you how I do the celery. Now, when you do this, you want to just kind of see, you got a small dice there. You got small little pieces. And I'm going to finish chopping this. I'm going to chop it kind of thin. Not real thin, but, you know, thinner than I would for soup or something like that, you know. Because I don't want to saute it too long. But we'll be back in just a minute when we get the onions chopped, okay? Okay, we got the onions chopped, and now we're going to chop the celery. And what I've done is I took my celery and I laid it down flat, like this. And I take my knife and I try to make 4 slices in it all the way to the bottom. Then I just push them together like this. And just make my dices right like that. If you don't like as much celery, you know, just put 1 piece in it. Really what you need is about 3 or 4 tablespoons of chopped celery. So we're going to finish chopping these and we'll be right back. Okay, we've got the celery chopped and we got the onions chopped. Now we're going to go over to the skillet and we're going to put them in the skillet. We're going to put about, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon of oil. Probably not that much. Probably more like a half a tablespoon. And we're going to turn the burner on. I usually turn it on a little high till I get everything in here and get it started. And then I'll put a lid on it to make them sweat. Now let me put these over in the... Dropped them on the stove. Now, let me get my little spatula here. Get them coated just a little bit with the oil. Then as soon as these start cooking a little bit, we're going to let them cook about 3 or 4 minutes, just enough to get them kind of tender so they're not hard as rocks. because they're not really going to get that much softer when you cook them a little bit. But now the celery, it stays a little firm, but the onion cooks up a little quicker. And let's see, I usually would put a little salt in this, but I don't, because the obey that I use has salt in it. So I don't salt this at all, and these are plenty salty. You don't need any salt in these right now, because time you get everything in them that you got to put in them, they're plenty salty. Okay, they're starting to sizzle a little bit. Now, I'm not going to make you watch onions and celery sizzle. So I'm going to put a lid on it. I'm going to turn the heat down to about 3, 2.5 or 3. And I'm going to just kind of stand here and watch it and stir it and not let it burn. And I'm going to put that lid on it to hold in the steam, because that steam cooks them. It cooks them quicker than if you leave the lid off. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we've got the onions and the celery. You can see them. It made about a cup, maybe. Robert likes more vegetables than his. He likes just likes it in there. That's the reason I put more in it. And we got all of our ingredients out here. Now here's my 3 cans of crab meat. I've still got onions on the counter. I'm going to put them in my bowl. They've been drained really good. When you buy the canned crab meat, be sure and watch, because these little white pieces of paper that they put in there to keep it from sticking to the can sometimes gets stuck to the crab meat, and if you're not careful, you put it in your thing and try to mix it up. He drained this really good. Well, see if I can get a hold of it here to get the crab meat off of it the best I can. There's still a little bit down in the can though. Now I know a lot of people think you have to buy the fancy lump. If you want to spend $15 for a half a pound, go for it. Robert doesn't want me to do that. I bought him some one time. We found it, I don't remember where it was. I think it was was it at Aldi's? They had some on sale or something. It was lump crab meat, and it was a big old can, and it was only like $10. But I'm talking a big can, that big around. It was huge. Never seen that again. And I doubt seriously if you would. Okay, let me rinse my hands just a little bit.
I can't tell the difference, Kathy, between lump and can when you cook it. But if somebody else has a more refined palate, then more power to them.
Most people would just want crab. And see, this makes, the 3 cans makes a pretty good bit of crab meat. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the onion and celery together with it, and we're going to mix that in here and let that be cooling down a little bit. We don't want to put a raw egg in on top of that hot celery and onions. We're going to stir it up a little bit. Then the recipe calls for 1 egg, so we're going to get us an egg. Now, I made this recipe, gosh, I don't know how many years ago. It's been a long time. He puts this over here. I keep the eggshells for my friend Marty. And 1 tablespoon Dijon mustard. And I use the spicy brown mustard, and I'm just going to eyeball it about a tablespoon. And we need 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and it doesn't take much Worcestershire. Then we need 1 tablespoon of mayo. And I've got it in this little thing here. I didn't want to set the mayonnaise out in the heat. So I just put it there, right there. Then we need 1 teaspoon of Old Bay seasoning. This is seafood seasoning. Some people don't put this in, some people do. Oh. Let me get me a little spoon here. Now this is what I was talking about that has salt in it. So you gotta be careful. Okay. Put just a little bit more. I've got tablespoon on there. Because a tablespoon, when you use a spoon like that, is not as much as you think. And then we want some black pepper, just a little bit of black pepper. Just put a little shake in there, just about whatever you like. And you can use cayenne pepper, the pepper powder, or you can use hot sauce. And this is more or less just to give a flavor. It's not to make it hot, okay? And it calls for a tablespoon. So I'm going to just eyeball it there. Now, I've got everything in there, and it calls for crackers. You can use regular saltine crackers if you don't have the Ritz crackers. I like to use the Ritz crackers, but you can use whichever you have. If you've got saltine and you want to use them. I just take my mallet and just smash them up pretty good. Flip them over. Now, let's mix up this first before we put that in. Kind of get all the wet ingredients mixed in. Smells good. Now we've got it all mixed up. Now we're going to put the cracker crumbs in. Now, if I see that I need more cracker crumbs, put more. You can put more. I got 18 to 20 just as a rough estimate. Okay? There's been times that I put more. There's been times that I didn't put hardly as many. I think I used 22 this time, because I had that extra can of crab meat in there. Now, some people like to use panko crumbs. I've never been a fan of using panko crumbs. Not for this. Okay, now, we're going to go over there to the skillet. And I'm going to get my... This is the reason I bought this little skillet. I know it's to make other things, but it works really good for things like salmon patties or hamburgers or turkey burgers. They're easier to flip. You're not having to try to gouge them in the side of the pan that's got a high side on it.
What's that? That pan was made for, what do you call them, little thin pancakes? What are them things called? We watch on Cooking Channel all the time.
Yeah, I know. Can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
I put about 2 tablespoons of oil in there probably. And I'm going to turn the burner on medium-high. And I'm going to get my spatula. Now, I'm going to take about a tablespoon like this. And I'm going to roll it out into it just a little. Now, I don't want to put it in there, though, until it starts getting hot. Might take it just a second. Katie sure had a good time yesterday at the dog show. She was just beside herself. Well, where have all these buddies come from, she thought. She was just having a big time. I'm going to dab me just a little piece in there and see when it starts sizzling so I can tell when it's hot enough to put it in. Okay. It's starting to sizzle a little bit. And I'm going to hope that these are, if you want to, you can crush some extra crackers and put them in a bowl and dip yours down in it when they're like this. If you don't want to, don't trust them being. Now I'm going to turn it down a little bit because they will get hot fast. And it's kind of a wet batter. It's a little wet. So you just got to be careful with it. Get it in there gently. But you get a good moist crab cake that way. They're not dry. And you don't make them real big. But I would like for some of you all to try these and see what you think about them. If you like crab cakes. If you don't like crab cakes, you probably won't want to. And you cook them about 2 or 3 minutes on each side. Let me rinse my hands off here. I got crab cakes all over my hands. My stove is not completely level because there's not enough oil coming down here. Now, I know which one I'll put in first. I put that one in first, and I'm going to check it first. Get that up to about 2.5. Sometimes I put a lid on this, but most of the time I don't because they really don't need a lid on them. They're already real moist anyway, so it holds. Let me see if I can see. No, that's not ready. I can tell it's not. They need to make a spatula that's about that wide for small things, That's for, coated skillets and things so that you don't scratch them up and things. But most of the people that make this stuff are men that don't cook, so they don't know what they need.
Here now, woman. Making
So.
fun of them men. She does that all the time. If it ain't right, blame them men.
Well, they're the ones that make things, and they're not the ones that cook most of the time. There's a few men's chefs, but most of the cooks are women. We do the cooking. Tell them how you cooked for me, Robert, when I come home from the hospital. How'd you cook for me?
3 things, prepackaged, or...
How did you cook for me most of the time?
Oh, I went and got you a chili.
He went to the restaurants and got
If she wanted to eat something edible, she did. It had to be cooked by somebody who knew what they was doing. And I can boil water, make toast.
That's why when you all think that I don't need to, that's why I watch you so close. One day in your, what was it you done? You poured the flour in the, we was making something, and you poured the flour in the chocolate stuff, and it didn't go in the chocolate stuff. Before I could stop him, he done dumped flour in it.
I blame the supervisor.
Well, and when I tried to supervise you, though, people think I'm being mean to you because they don't know how hard-headed you are.
The buck stops at Kathy's.
They don't know how he doesn't listen a lot of times.
How long are we supposed to cook these things?
Well, you cook them till they're ready to turn. I haven't had them turned up real high. I'm afraid to try to
Fall apart, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get on this other side.
You can pause it a minute.
Yeah, let's pause it.
If it's getting too long, pause it and I'll show you. But they probably want to watch to see when to turn it.
All right, well, I'll keep it rolling.
I might turn it up just a tad bit more. I just don't want to burn them. But boy, you can smell like crab, can't you, Robert? Can you smell it cooking?
Listen, y'all.
Mmm.
I can't smell a thing. I'm always sinusy. I can smell cinnamon when
Hand
she
me a
cooks the
spoon
cinnamon.
over there so
Like-
I can push it up on this.
I will, but it jerks the camera, so hold
Well,
on.
just get one out of the dish strainer there and let me get one so I can kind of. Now.
They are delicate, ain't they?
Yes, they are.
Not like a hamburger patty.
They're not. These are the hardest things that I ever try to cook because you have to be so careful with them because they're very delicate, and if you start roughhousing them around, you're going to get, they're going to come all apart. See, I think I put this one in that next. Now this is why you don't put a lid on them. You don't need a lid on these because they are plenty moist enough. You know more how your stove cooks than I do. So you know about how to put the heat up. Because everybody's stove cooks different. This one cooks different than the last stove I had. I liked my other stove better. This one's harder to work with. But we're going to pause you just a second, and when these are done, we'll put a picture of them on the page so you can see it. But basically, that's how you make the crab cakes. See you guys later. Hey guys, I've got the crab cakes finished and I'm going to let you see them. And I made 10 crab cakes. Nice crab cakes. Now these are delicate. You have to be very gentle when you are turning these. I turned mine twice on each side, just to make sure they're brown enough, and they get a little firmer the second time. Also, I'll tell you something else I usually do. I usually mix up everything except the crackers, and I put it in the refrigerator for about an hour before I make the crab cakes. That makes it a lot better. I didn't do that this evening for the sake of time, but the recipe that I told you about that I made up a long time ago, it tells you to put it in the refrigerator for about an hour. But I'm going to turn you around and let you see these crab cakes now. There's the crab cakes. That's what they look like. They turned out really good. Real tasty. Robert's going to try them in just a minute. But they looked really good. And they smelled really good too. But we're going to get off of here. And I hope everybody had a good Sabbath day, good Sunday. We had a good church service this morning with my brother-in-law Dave and my sister. We started going to church down there. It's about an hour away, but I really enjoyed it and just feel like that's kind of where God led me to go. And but anyway, you all have a blessed night and do something good for somebody. I am going to try to do Bible study tomorrow, so about 2 o'clock. So tune in, guys, and I'll see you later. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it at 2 o'clock. I got a dentist appointment. So I guess I'll have to wait till, I might ought to wait and see if my mouth is unnumb. So we'll just play it by ear, okay? I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.